I'm so pleased to welcome Albert Jennings. He is the founder and managing director of Get It Across, or otherwise known as GIA. His company is based out of Cologne in Germany, and we're going to be hearing all about the German market today, and a bit of an update on how tourism is going from Germany itself, which is excellent. So Albert Jennings, let me just give you a bit of a potted history on Albert. He is a native of Austin, Texas, and he studied urban studies at the University of Pennsylvania with a concentration in macroeconomic planning and a minor in Germany.
In Germany.
In Germany. Excuse me for that one. He moved to Germany 30 years ago in 1988, showing his age now. And after several years of market research and translation work, discovered the travel industry, where he has been at home for the last 25 years. Albert founded GIA in 1999. It's based on strong industry contacts and has steadily grown since. As managing director, Albert oversees strategic and budgetary planning for all clients, executes research and ROI projects, and strives to establish a healthy work-life balance for his highly valued GIA staff.
Correct.
Outside of the office, Albert enjoys biking through the countryside, discovering quaint little towns along the way. And in Cologne, he frequently spends the evening on his grand piano, which I'm looking forward to hearing about, with a penchant for late romantic Russian and Baroque classical music.
There you go.
How's about that? So Albert, welcome.
Will the real Albert Jennings please stand up? Yeah.
I know. It's quite surreal reading your profile there.
That's me. Yeah. Yeah, I've been in Germany for over 30 years. I studied here in the mid 80s, and I applied for a work study scholarship and landed it from a German foundation and moved to Cologne to do market research for Kaufhof, which is a large department store. It was part of a huge conglomerate that was broken up a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a 6-month internship, and look, I'm still here. So I'm very happy here in Cologne. Everything obviously has changed tons since the wall came down and Europe has been reunited. And
absolutely,
yeah,
a lot of change in those 30 years for sure.
A lot of change, and yeah.
Okay, so
we're still here.
Still here, fantastic. So how has the pandemic been for you, sort of personally as well as, say, professionally?
Well, professionally, since we're all in the travel industry, I can say it's been, horrible. It's been devastating, and it's been, people compare it with a marathon, but at least, a marathon's over at 2 miles, and we don't know when this marathon's going to be completely over. They keep putting new obstacles into our way. Personally, professionally, our income is way down. A lot of our clients, especially like our city DMC clients, we're forced immediately to cancel our contracts or put them on ice. Some of our larger state clients were able to honor our contracts until the end of last year's contract period, and then really had to scrape the money together to keep us on some type of minimal retainer over the past year. Germany has extremely supportive programs, both wage subsidy and direct cost subsidy programs. No mortal can understand these programs. It's very German. It's very complicated. There are many, many steps involved. There are lots of forms, You can't actually, as an individual, submit these forms yourself. You have to have them submitted by a tax consultant, a notary, or someone like that. So I have never spent so much time in my life on the phone or per email with my tax consultants. I probably talk to them, I would say, truly at least once a day. There's some issue that needs to be clarified. So I'm very grateful for the support programs. My staff is all still here. They've been on reduced working hours through wage subsidy since April of last year. This program will be continued through December. I'm very grateful that we have paying clients. Between it, I do lots of juggling, and I can adjust my staff's hours on a monthly basis. So if we see there's more project work coming in, I can give them more hours per month, which then I
Mhm.
report to my tax consultant and we fill out these complicated forms. And then we end up getting compensated from the Department of Labor the following month for the net wage loss. So all in all, it's been tons of paperwork. Um, Again, I want to express I'm very grateful for the programs that we have. I'm grateful that the German government had these programs in place. Um, Personally, yeah, the stress level has changed completely. You know, I was under a lot of performance pressure all the time. You know, I was traveling tons. I would, have this feeling, oh, I need to get the monthly report finished now because in 2 days I fly to Munich, and then from there I'm training down to Vienna for a presentation, and then I will be back in Cologne. Oh, I need to put that proposal together before I fly out to the United States with my clients the following week. There was always this performance pressure and time pressure, and
Mm.
that, understandably hasn't occurred in over a year. I would say 15 months or so. um, I don't miss the deadlines like we had before. I do not miss that. I don't miss the hectic. There's a German word called Entschleunigung, and it means slowing down. And there's been, I think everyone in the world has talked about, reprioritizing your life, or, only concentrating on those things that are really important.
Mm.
Well, there hasn't been a lot of other stuff to do. I've played lots of piano. I've been reading lots of books. I enjoy walking. I haven't left the city limits hardly any. I've traveled very little outside of the greater Cologne area for months. I'm a little bored. Okay. I've gotten bored. I'm getting cabin fever and itchy. We can travel now as Germans within Europe. So Europe has been pretty uniform about its own standards. And what I have to say, I'm truly proud and remarkable. What I think it's remarkable. I'm proud it's happened. Um, Brussels has established a type of, digital vaccination standard, which is going to be utilized within Europe. And UK has honored, is going to honor this system, as I've understood. Canada is also going to be honoring and using the same system.
Yeah.
So it's a very important step. Um,
Mm.
and what Macron just yesterday made a very, very, very powerful statement in France concerning about the necessity to get your vaccinations done within France. Um, Certain professional groups will require vaccinations. Germany's backed away from requiring stuff. So there's been enough backlash, or I wouldn't say backlash, but concern. There's been worldwide concern. You hear all these conspiracy wackos, sorry, say wackos,
Yeah.
about the vaccination issues.
Yeah.
So there has not been a mandatory legislation for professional groups here to get a vaccination in order to exercise their course of work.
Mm.
I don't think that will come, but there's going to be significant enough pressure that they're going to do it. Germany, my last point here with the pandemic, Germany had a very, very, very good public testing program that was initiated somewhat late. I would say it didn't really come to fruition until January this year, but there are public and free public testing places all over the city. I don't even know how many are here in Cologne. There must be at least 100 public testing facilities that are free. So the government said before you can get one free test a week. Well, no one's really asking. People would be getting multiple free tests a week because when the restaurants here opened, it all opened up pretty late here. Germany was on a pretty much a severe lockdown from November until April. So 6 months, really nothing was open.
Yeah.
When stuff starting to be open, even outdoor dining, you needed to have proof of a negative COVID test in order to even do outdoor dining. And they only opened up indoor dining a few weeks ago. So Germany's been very conservative about opening up. They were very concerned because the rate of incidence was, had spiked like it did everywhere after Christmas and New Year's. We were around 300 or so, and now we got down to 4.9, and now we're up to 11.2 per 100,000, which is still I'm not pointing fingers, but when Great Britain opened up yesterday, everyone's here like, why did they do it? It's like, I understand you do want to open up and start your life again. But if you have an incident rate that's as high as, it's much higher than it is here. Germany takes a
More cautious.
more cautious, exactly, a
Yeah.
more cautious
Mm.
uh, strategy.
Yes, I think it is a bit of a debate. I think countries are going to open up at different times. I think it's great to hear that the European, if you like, the vaccine passport, for want of a better word, is going to be including other nations that can
Hmm.
join, like the UK and Canada, like you just mentioned, because I think as much joined up collusion together to help get tourism moving is really where we need to go.
Oh, for sure.
And I think for every nation, it's making sure the vaccines are holding and that it's not putting a burden on any medical system. And then so for us at the
Correct.
moment, it doesn't appear to be a burdening our medical system, even though, yes, the contagion, if you like, is running rife still.
Well, that's the
Um,
discussion here too, Julia, that it shouldn't just be based upon the rate of incidence. You need to, look at the medical system and see, is it overrun? Is it,
yeah,
there are multiple. I mean, this is learning for doing for everybody, and I'm not one to point fingers or throw the first stone for anything because, no one's been down this road together. So the situation changes, and as the situation changes, you need to make new policy to adapt to it, and it's going to be, if whatever, I hate this word, the new normal, but the new normal is going to be permanent change. So we're going to be having to adapt regularly for new curveballs that are thrown in our direction.
yeah, that's right. And the travel industry is actually pretty good at working out curveballs, mainly because of the natural disasters that generally happen anyway,
Yeah,
just even normal years without having a pandemic sort of thrown on top of it. So as an industry, as an ecosystem, I think we work particularly well. But then when you throw governments and their way of communicating and seeing things, I think that makes it just a little bit harder on, if you like, they kind of add another layer of rules. So you really are working
they
with
do.
government as well as our own industry. Mm.
I would love to second and re-emphasize what you just said, because the hospitality industry, the hotels, the cruise ships, the airlines, they benchmarked all these health standards or, protective health security stuff that pretty much the governments have later, assumed themselves. So we in the hospitality industry have definitely taken, by means of, we needed to get going again. So that's why I think, we've
Mm.
spearheaded a bunch of these benchmark standards.
Yeah. So how is Germany opening up for tourism, sort of welcoming international travelers, and also how are what's the thoughts of the German population getting going and traveling too?
As in every country, domestic travel remains the non plus ultra for the 2021 season.
Mm.
Um, Germans, how can put this? I'm not going to make it prettier or make it uglier, and I'm definitely not a negative Nancy, but um, um,
Sophocles.
traveling within the country is what people are interested in. People are more interested in having vacation rentals than hotels. They want to travel with their cars rather than be on planes. These are things that we're seeing in all of our markets. That's not unique just for Germany. Beyond Germany, Austria and Italy and Spain are the main close markets where the majority of Germans vacation to. Um, each of these each of these has undergone, like we have, a roller coaster of good numbers, bad numbers, good numbers, bad numbers. So, everybody has to stay on top and figure out, okay, you've booked a vacation in an area that, say, it's a non-risk area, and then by the time you're traveling there, all of a sudden it's considered a risk area. So do you cancel your vacation, or do you do it and you have to ensure that you have your negative testing before you come back into the country? Oh, will you be checked if you're driving a car? Will you be checked if you're flying a plane? There's so many variables, and this is something that, especially our huge network of travel agents. They're such an important backbone for all of this because
mm,
they end up being the
mm,
information source that people go to,
mm,
because you can
mm,
read something, but you want to get some type of live verification about
mm,
what you've heard.
mm,
Is it true that I can go to Croatia? Well, maybe you can go to Split, but you can't go down to Dubrovnik. I don't know. You
mm.
have to stay on top of all of this.
Yes,
And
which is of course why we have OTT training, isn't it, Albert?
exactly, this is why we have OTT, or avail ourselves of these resources
Mm,
that help all of the travel agents and our multipliers,
mm,
to provide well informed and intelligent and helpful decisions for our travel clients. As to who's coming into Germany, Germany opened up pretty much its borders, as many of the countries did within Europe, I would say in June. So within the European, certain areas, unfortunately, now are being considered again high risk areas. So the Netherlands were just declared a higher risk area from Germany just this week. Um, Belgium was considered a high risk area a very long time, and it is not. I actually was in Belgium 2 weeks ago. It was my
all right,
first trip out of the country
useful
since,
to know.
woo, I don't even
Mm,
remember when. Um,
mm,
um, you just the rules change day to day.
mm,
Planning is challenging, and I do know that a lot of our travel industry partners, they end up kind of, again, I use the expression to kick the can down the road. You've taken one reservation, you've changed it like 6 times, so you're not really making any money on it. You're just taking your time to redo the reservation again. You're doing
mm,
it because you want to keep your client, and your clients are frequently your long-term clients, or your loyal clients.
mm,
Those are the basis
mm.
for your recommendations for new clients in the future. You keep doing it, but you can demonstrate your chagrin to having to do it again and again, because it's really frustrating. And then what you book might end up having to be kicked the can down the road again another time. So
Well, I think though, as vaccinations are showing that they can hold the different variants
yep.
fairly significantly, that we can be at least more bullish about 22
Oh,
than
for sure. This
24.
is
And
where
if you're
we're
more
all
skeptical,
looking
21. Mm,
optimistically to 2022. So
yeah.
this is what I've also personally experienced when I said before, it's like a marathon, but you don't know how long it's going to last. We were all overly optimistic, let's say in 2020, and thinking, oh, it's going to
Yeah.
be over in 2021. Well, hello, it wasn't. It still isn't over. It's not going to be over it might not ever be over. It's going to
Mm.
be our new normal that we have to contend with.
Yes, I think that's right. It is a new normal, but at least we can see a way out of it, and there
Yep.
will be eventually things a bit more sure, and we'll get used to things, or we'll start to
Yeah.
operate a bit more slicker. Like
Yeah.
even just having this new European um, passport
Yeah,
of
well, that's definitely
vaccination.
important because it's going to
Yeah,
be a standard that everyone here in Europe is using.
yeah, exactly.
We're hopeful to finally get some type of positive statement out of the United States, which we have not heard yet. Um, Europe opened itself up. France opened itself up early. Greece for American travelers. Europe as a whole, I would say it's been like this since mid-June or so, that Americans can travel here in Europe. If they've, you need to have certain proofs yourself, which everyone needs to carry with them, but it's opened up, and we're all
Yeah,
just waiting for a positive announcement like it came out of Canada yesterday, that Europeans can travel to Canada starting in September, and
yeah,
Americans can travel to Canada starting in August.
excellent. Very,
Yeah,
very good.
good news. It's good
Good,
news. Mhm.
absolutely good news. So, just to also say about something that you've mentioned before, which is we haven't mentioned it. You've mentioned it to me personally, but not on this recording, in case anyone thinks they're going completely
To
crazy.
you.
The newly formed bankruptcy program. So, tell
um,
me, what is this? I think this is quite important for the travel professionals to
Oh,
know.
for sure.
Mm,
This all came to
mm,
fruition in Germany following the demise of the Thomas Cook Company, which was listed in the UK, which was also basically, well, it's a multi-international company. Um, when they went bankrupt, the legislation and let's say, the tour operator liability protection was limited to 130 million euro, which was insufficient then to cover the damages that were incurred by the hundreds of thousands of people that were currently traveling under Thomas Cook's brands
Really.
around, well, at least the German brands. I'm not sure how it was handled in the UK, but I do know here are German brands. The major brand was Neckermann Reisen
Mm.
and Thomas Cook. So um, the 130 mil was spent pretty quickly, and then there wasn't any more money in the insurance fund. So the government then had to step in and, you know, either help people get
Mm.
back home or have the people that got back home then file for reimbursement through the government. So when all of this happened, then they realized that Europe as a whole needs to have a better grasp upon tour operator liability insurance and tour operator bankruptcy protection.
Mhm.
So all of this was being discussed in Brussels, and oh my God, all of a sudden we have a pandemic. So it's really bizarre that, you know, they needed to have this resolved before the pandemic, but they didn't know, no one knew a pandemic was coming.
Mm.
Um, to cut a long story short, the German government then has now, well, the government has passed legislation which there will be a protective fund, and the EU, Brussels signed off on it and okayed the German um, suggestion how they want to deal with this a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
So
Great. So that underpins TUI. Not that I don't think necessarily TUI needs underpinning, not starting any rumours, but
uh,
that's an important one to underpin.
well, it's exactly. And
Yeah,
so since TUI is a German company,
exactly.
on paper, hello, on paper,
Mm.
it's a German company. Sure, there are lots of jobs in Germany, but it's a worldwide company, and TUI is listed in the UK, and its largest investor is a Russian. So
Mm.
the German taxpayers underwritten or provided security protection for, I don't know how much, a lot of money, and
Mm.
it's important that they don't fold, but it's very possible that that company will be split up, or that some of the hotels, they've already sold some of their hotel portfolio. They might be separating other portfolios and concentrating on just the tour operating, or maybe they say it's lucrative just to concentrate on, I don't know, the airline. So we'll see what happens there. But the to get back to the protection plan, it just again is giving support then for the products that our tour operators and travel agents are selling, because these are package programs that are then completely protected. So it adds that extra layer of consumer protection that
Mm.
Germans are particularly fond of, because
Sure.
they want to know that what they're doing, what they're buying is something that they're not going to, you know, it's not a ripoff, that
Yes.
they're gonna get what they've been promised. And
Mm. And
uh,
particularly at this time where, the whole pandemic has swept around the world, to know that this legislation has been brought about in Europe, I think is really very reassuring. So although it's a negative thing, failure isn't something we want to talk about. We've mitigated it with a good old massive insurance package, and
yeah,
I think
well,
that's
it's
good news.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. And to go back to your
Mm.
prior question about, what has stuff changed? Well, a lot of the stuff, the major priority that people have when they're booking travel is knowing that it's flexible, and they're not going to be burned with cancellation fees or postponement fees. So
Yeah.
everyone, I call it the food chain. I mean, it goes down from the consumer, the travel agent, the tour operator, the receptive tour operator, the hotel person,
Mhm.
the transfer company on in the destination. There's so many different layers of the food chain, and there've been discussions here about whether, we shouldn't have down payments. And it's like, well, no, the down payment is an indication that you're making a contractual agreement with the company. So
Yeah.
the fear is that if there's not a down payment, some of the consumer protection um, groups here in Germany have said, well, why should we have a down payment? Because we're not being offered anything when we make our down payment. And if the trip is canceled, well, then Well, this is why we have the bankruptcy protection and the down payment protection plans in Germany, because what people do not want is if you're interested in taking a vacation, let's say in Crete, and you've gone to three different travel agencies and you've looked at two different offers on an OTA and you've pre-booked five different packages and then you decide which one you want to take because you haven't had to make a down payment on any of these.
Yes, chaos.
Yeah, it's chaos because then the hotels then are overbooked or the
Exactly.
reservations they have absolutely are, there's no validity in the number of reservations they have.
Mm,
So
mm.
the discussions are important and I'm glad they're being pursued. And
Yes.
I'm not by any way saying consumer protection is ultimately it's decisive. I mean, it's the faith that people have in the products that they're buying,
Mm,
and it's very important that that's maintained.
absolutely.
But we have a food chain, and you can't assume that if the down payment's not being made, the hotel needs to be paid in advance anyway. So in most cases, so
Mm, exactly. So on one other sort of slightly, well, it is a negative topic, but I gather things are improving, is the most awful floods that plagued Germany, was it last week or the beginning
last
of
week,
this
yeah.
week? Last
Mhm.
week. So just briefly how that's going, and actually which part of Germany specifically is that affecting in particular?
Okay. So this year around, the floods were primarily where I live in Cologne. So Cologne is on the Rhine. Um, this is where a bunch of the smaller rivers that flooded the water ends up coming into the Rhine. Um, they the the German terms are this Bergische Land and the Eifel. So these are two areas to the east and to the west of Cologne on the Rhine River. So the Rhine here is flat like a pancake, but it becomes rolly further east and further west. And this is where some of these narrow river valleys were that were just drowned. It rained here, it seemed like 48 hours nonstop. So all of this water then went into these narrow river valleys, and unfortunately, they just became these raging cataracts and just demolished everything that was in their way. So the major flooding is the area north and south between, I would say, between Dusseldorf and Koblenz along the Rhine, and east west. East, not hugely far east. I would say maybe 60 kilometers east of where the Rhine is going east, but west way into Belgium and way into Holland. So the rivers here run west and north. So the Rhine ends up going into the Atlantic and Rotterdam. So it goes into Holland. You know, we share a large border with Holland, and the rivers that, yeah, that got all the water were the Maas, the Meuse, the Maas in Holland and the Rhine. So that was the flooding here. And then just a few days ago, there was significant flooding, unfortunately, also in southern Germany and Bavaria, so on the Bavarian Austria border areas. This was in Berchtesgaden and on Königssee. And this is where a lot of our popular outdoor winter sports venues are. This is where the most famous of the German bobsled and luge, what do you call it? What's it called?
Um,
Race course. We'll call it a
okay,
race course.
we'll call it a race course.
We'll
Yes,
call
sorry.
it a race course. Unfortunately, like the race course for the luge and the
Yeah.
bobsled was destroyed.
Okay.
I think there were outdoor ice skating arenas that were destroyed. I think there was some damage done to some of the ski jumping facilities in Austria. I'm not sure
Mm,
about that, but there was severe flooding again in southern Germany and in Austria, which also affected some of the rivers that run through the Czech Republic. So we've had
mm,
bad flooding here. A few years ago, the bad flooding was in eastern Germany. So the Moldau in the Czech Republic runs into the Elbe, and then the Elbe goes north, and that runs through Dresden and Meissen. So there was extremely bad flooding a few years ago on the eastern part of the country. Yeah, and then a few
mm.
years later, there was no water, and then the riverboats couldn't run because there wasn't enough water in the Elbe. So, I mean, we're definitely dealing with,
Climate
environmental
change.
changes. Yeah.
Mm, mm. I know, as if we haven't got enough to deal with, but yeah,
Hmm.
the travel industry is sort of up front and center there and coordinating the world and navigating through
Oh, for sure.
crisis,
I mean, what I
disaster,
said
bringing
before.
together to, to try and triumph over it. I think we're pretty good at triumphing over it, but yeah, we're having quite a lot of curveballs thrown at us
There
right
are
now.
lots
I'm
of
sure
curveballs. We
all
are
the best.
resilient, and
Yeah,
I'm still, you've lived abroad for quite a number of years. I've lived
yeah,
abroad for quite a number of years. I Tourism is crucial for, I call it, grassroots diplomacy. It's so
mm,
necessary that people travel and interact, and you know, you might not like everything that other people say or do, but it's important that the rest of the world knows that other stuff is going on.
mm,
No one is in a bubble anymore. It's a global
mm,
world, and
yeah.
we can still, act locally and stuff, but we need to be aware of what's going on in the global front. And
Mm.
travel is such an important, yeah,
It's a
impact.
uniting front, isn't it? I mean, it brings, hopefully, because the world, it's a pandemic, meaning it's everywhere around the world, it will
Mhm.
unite us and bring us all together
Yeah.
for the better. Let's try and be positive, whether it's to do with the the ecology, the environment, and everything that's happening with
Yeah, well, the
change,
huge subjects over here, is
tourism.
energy and,
It's everything, isn't it?
renewable energies and all of
Yeah.
that. It all
And
plays
technology is helping
together.
to escalate through all sorts of things as well, like the passport for Europe to get travel moving again. So
Yeah.
technology will play a part. Yes, and it's in everyone's interest to do their part.
It
So
is, and we're all looking optimistic for 2022. We're
yeah,
working with a number of our tour operators to, I'm not saying we have everything finished and we just need to open the drawer and pull it out, but we've already done a lot of significant pre-planning with a lot of our destination clients for the marketing programs we want to roll out in the fall and in the winter in order to get Travel 22 going. So
absolutely, yes. So unfortunately, we've run out of time now.
we
It's been
have, oh my
very
God, we've just been
interesting.
babbling. I've just been babbling and babbling.
But I know you do a wonderful monthly update, which we publish to OTT's
You do. Thank you.
blogs around the world, the
Mm,
different country sites. So thank you so much for keeping us up to
yes.
date, and thank you very much for managing OTT's
Oh, we're
German
happy
site as
to. I've
well.
got a great team. You worked with our Julia for a
You
long time. You're
do,
working with
no,
Silke and Enos,
Anita.
and it's a great
Yes,
team. And I've got a
great
great team
team.
here in Cologne, and I'm very grateful.
Yes, so thank you
Mm,
so much for all of
mm,
that. And we'll check in again a bit later in the year to hear about how you see 22 moving forward.
yeah.
But so grateful for your time today, Albert. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you too,
And Travel
Julia. Take
Talks.
care.
Yes, thank you.
Au
Bye-bye.
revoir.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.